I want to just talk about the human mind's capacity to know and to think and to believe. You know, I look at how much trouble people have with mathematics, typically. If there's any one subject that the most number of people say I was never good at, insert a topic, it's going to be math. And so I say to myself, if our brain were wired for logical thinking, then math would be everyone's easiest subject, and everything else would be harder. So I'm kind of forced to conclude that our brain is not wired for logic.
That's a very good point, and it's more than just that. I think there's also a kind of unwarranted pride in being bad at mathematics. You will never hear anybody saying how proud they are of being ignorant of Shakespeare,
right,
or Dryden. But plenty of people will say they're proud of being ignorant of mathematics.
Or if they don't use the word proud, they'll say, I was never good at math. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah,
they'll chuckle about it. It becomes a joke.
There was a thing in one of the British newspapers where a science writer, I think a science journalist, was lamenting the fact that many people in Britain think it takes 1 month for the Earth to orbit the Sun. And the editor then inserted there, doesn't it, Ed? So he was, as it were, saying, you know, I'm the editor of a national newspaper. And of course I don't really think it takes, but nevertheless, it's okay to make a joke about being ignorant of this very elementary point of astronomy, which he would never ever do about being, you know, confusing Byron with Virgil or something like that.
Right, or ever be proud of such a thing. So then you must admit or confess that we as a human organism must have a great challenge before us to think rationally, logically, scientifically.
Yeah, I mean, you made the very interesting point that maybe we're not wired to be good at logic. Well, you generalized from mathematics to logic.
Yeah, I did, but for this conversation, I think we can claim that.
Certainly, many people are extremely illogical, but
and they, by the way, they get along just fine in life. They live long lives, and.
But I think it's an interesting point that our wild ancestors, needing to survive in the presence of lions and drought and famine and things, you'd think logic would be pretty important for survival, wouldn't it?
So,
if not mathematics, at least.
Well, it could be maybe early people who said, "Oh, there's a creature there with big teeth. Let me investigate it further."
Yes, I mean, in a way, that's right. Being
at some level,
scientific is a bad thing.
Curiosity doesn't always work.
I had a cousin who was a little boy, put his finger in the mains and got a shock. So he did it again just to make sure. He's a real scientist, but not very good for survival.
Right. So perhaps the gut reaction to run or to be scared or to chant or I guess what I'm getting at is there's so much of human civilization that derives not from logical thinking, but from what we might simply call illogical thinking. And, I mean, art. You know, I've got Van Gogh on the wall. No one's going to quiz him and say, how logical were you when you painted The Starry Night? And so, what does it mean to object, then, to people who feel this way? Because I'm more... I detach myself more from that battle than you do. You are in the front lines, and I'm way in the back line watching you do this. And I'm saying sometimes people just want to feel rather than think.
Yes, I keep pushing back to the evolutionary origins of this, and when you have to survive in a hostile environment, it may be that you do need a certain amount of illogical
gut.
Yes, it may be that you need to fear things which logic tells you. Well, maybe it's a matter of the odds that something is actually dangerous.
Or the cost to you if it is.
The cost to you. If you see a sort of rustling in the trees, it could be a leopard about to jump on you, but it's much more likely to be the wind, and the logical, rational explanation is probably it's the wind. But when your survival depends upon the remote possibility, well, not remote, the rather lower probability that it might be a leopard, the prudent thing is to be